My name is Caleb. I was 36 years old, a drummer born and raised under the humid Memphis sky. And my entire existence had revolved around rhythm, melody, and an almost religious devotion to Michael Jackson. Ever since I was a skinny kid kicking up dust on the sidewalks of Tennessee, I'd been captivated by the way MJ seemed to conjure magic out of sound and movement. His dance, that voice dripping with raw emotion, the sheer, unyielding dedication to his craft, it was the fuel that ignited my own dreams. I lived to play music, sacrificing everything else on its altar, family ties, my own health, maybe even, as I would later discover, my very soul. I convinced myself I was chasing perfection, living life to the absolute fullest, just like my idol. But on March 8, 2024, the foundation of my beliefs crumbled, and I was forced to confront the terrifying truth about the path I had chosen. I grew up ordinary. Not poor, but definitely not rich. My dad drove long-haul trucks, a ghost in my childhood photos, always on the road. My mom stitched seams in a small tailor shop downtown, her fingers nimble but her brow often furrowed with worry. They didn't get music, not really. They couldn't grasp why their son was so obsessed with a man like Michael Jackson, a figure who seemed larger than life, almost alien. Learn a steady trade, Caleb. Mom would sigh, finding me hours deep in the dusty garage, pounding away on a second-hand drum kit until my arms ached and sweat stung my eyes. I never listened. Music wasn't a hobby, it was oxygen. The first time I heard the opening bass line of Billie Jean, a jolt went through me, an electric certainty. This was what I was born to do. I dropped out of high school at 17. A decision that carved a rift between me and my parents that never fully healed. I joined a local band, convinced stardom was just around the corner. My 20s were a blur of rented vans, sticky bar floors, and the constant thrum of bass vibrating through my bones. I lived like a musical nomad, drifting from one dimly lit club to the next, playing with fierce intensity until exhaustion claimed me, then drinking cheap whiskey until the world blurred into a welcome oblivion. I told myself this was living, this was paying dues. This was edging closer to that sublime perfection MJ embodied. I cut my hair like his, wore knockoff versions of his jackets. Even tried mimicking his impossible spins and slides, though my feet always felt clumsy, tethered to the earth in a way his never seemed to be. I truly believed that if I just pushed hard enough, sacrificed enough, I would eventually grasp that brass ring of fame, become somebody. But fame remained elusive. The crowds didn't grow. I was still just Caleb, the nameless drummer laying down beats and dives where most of the audience was too drunk or too preoccupied to notice the intricate rhythms I poured my soul into. A creeping doubt began to coil in my gut. Was I just wasting my life, chasing a ghost? But then I'd put on Thriller or Bad, crank the volume until the windows rattled, and the fire would rekindle. MJ did it, I tell myself, gripping the worn drumsticks. He came from humble beginnings. If he could reach the stratosphere, maybe, just maybe, I could too. I clung to that hope like a lifeline, blind to the true cost of the path I emulated. March 8, 2024. The night air was crisp, carrying the scent of the Mississippi River and stale beer. We just finished a set at Rusty's Bar, a rough-around-the-edges joint on the outskirts of Memphis. It wasn't a packed house, maybe 40 or 50 people scattered around sticky tables, but I'd played like it was Madison Square Garden. Every beat, every fill, every crash of the cymbal had been delivered with everything I had. Sweat plastered my hair to my forehead, my heart hammered against my ribs like a frantic double bass pedal. But I dismissed it as the usual post-gig adrenaline surge. It was always like this, the intense high of the performance followed by a bone-deep weariness. I exchanged tired nods with the band, grizzled veterans, lifers like me, bound together by the shared language of chords and rhythms. We were all chasing something, though none of us could probably articulate exactly what it was. I carefully disassembled my kit, The familiar ritual of packing away the chrome and wood, a grounding counterpoint to the lingering energy of the set. Each piece was loaded into the bed of my beat-up Ford pickup. A faithful companion through countless late nights and early mornings. Climbing into the driver's seat, I felt a profound exhaustion settle over me, heavier than usual. The air inside the cab felt thick, strangely oppressive, despite the chill outside. It felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I turned the key, the engine grumbling to life. My plan was simple. Drive back to my small, cluttered apartment, maybe grab a cold slice of pizza from the fridge, and crash. I'd played well tonight, I thought with a flicker of satisfaction. Maybe this gig, this night, maybe it meant something. Then it hit me. Not a gradual discomfort, but a sudden, cataclysmic explosion of pain in the center of my chest. It was unlike anything I'd ever felt, sharp, tearing, as if a white-hot poker had been rammed straight through my sternum. My breath hitched, caught in my throat. Air wouldn't come. My hands, suddenly slick with sweat, started to tremble violently. Panic flared cold and absolute. I fumbled for my phone on the passenger seat, needing to dial 911, but my fingers felt like clumsy sausages. The phone slipped, clattering uselessly onto the floor mat beneath the dashboard. My vision tunneled, the edges blurring into a swirling vortex of gray. The glow of the dashboard lights seemed impossibly bright. Then distant. Sounds became muffled, distorted, the truck's idling engine, the distant traffic on the highway. I heard, or thought I heard, the faint, rising wail of a siren somewhere far off. Was it for me? Did someone see? The pain intensified, a crushing vice squeezing the life out of me. Then, the light faded completely, and an immense, silent darkness swallowed me whole. I don't know how much time passed, seconds, minutes, an eternity. The next sensation wasn't the jolt of defibrillator paddles or the antiseptic smell of a hospital. It was heat. Intense, suffocating heat, pressing in from all sides, scorching my skin, drying the very air in my lungs. I wasn't in my truck. I wasn't in Memphis. I stood on trembling legs in a vast, cavernous space illuminated by a hellish, crimson glow. The air hung thick and heavy, reeking of sulfur, acrid smoke, and something else, something like despair made tangible. The ground beneath my feet felt unstable, vibrating subtly as if the very rock was groaning in agony. Towering, jagged formations of black, obsidian-like rock stretched up into a swirling, smoke-choked non-sky. Rivers of molten rock, thick and viscous like burning blood, oozed through deep fissures, casting dancing, demonic shadows. Directly before me loomed a gate. It was colossal, impossibly tall, wrought from some dark, pitted metal that seemed to absorb the infernal light. The entire surface was intricately carved, not with patterns, but with faces, countless faces contorted in agony, mouths stretched wide in silent screams, eyes hollowed out into pits of endless suffering. A chilling wave of understanding washed over me, colder than the surrounding fire. This wasn't a dream. This wasn't a hallucination. I was no longer on Earth. This was hell, or some terrifying layer of it, and I stood at its threshold. From the swirling heat haze before the monstrous gate, a figure coalesced. It was tall, unnervingly so, easily twice the height of a man. Its form was humanoid, yet utterly alien. Skin like cooled ash, gray and lifeless. Eyes that burned with the intensity of smoldering coals, devoid of any recognizable emotion save for a chilling ancient power. A palpable aura of cold radiated from it, a stark contrast to the searing environment, a coldness that spoke of absolute authority and utter detachment. I felt its power like a physical blow. A crushing weight that pinned me in place, making the very thought of escape seem ludicrous. It could annihilate me with a glance. I knew that with instinctive certainty. "You are Caleb." The voice echoed, not through the air, but inside my head. It was sharp, resonant, and cold as glacial ice, cutting through the oppressive heat. From Memphis. Drummer. It wasn't a question. Welcome. The voice resonated, devoid of any warmth. To the 66th layer. Fear, raw and primal, constricted my throat, stealing the breath the heat hadn't already claimed. My heart hammered. A frantic, useless rhythm against the backdrop of this terrifying silence. I wanted to run, to scream, to dissolve into nothingness, but my feet were leaden, rooted to the groaning rock. Am I dead? I managed to stammer, the words barely audible, my voice trembling uncontrollably. The being didn't answer immediately. Its burning eyes fixed on me, seeming to pierce through flesh and bone, laying bare every secret, every shame, every hidden corner of my soul I had desperately tried to keep hidden even from myself. It felt like an eternity passed under that unblinking, incinerating gaze. Not entirely, the guardian finally stated, its voice sending shivers down my spine despite the inferno. But you stand upon the precipice of your eternal fate. You loved music, did you not, Caleb? Idolized the one known as Michael Jackson? The one who bartered his soul for the adoration of millions? The one whose melodies were crafted to ensnare, to glorify the darkness. A wave of nausea rolled through me. This couldn't be true. MJ? Sold his soul? It had to be lies, demonic propaganda. The guardian continued, its tone unwavering. He chose fleeting fame over eternal light. He desired pleasure above principle. He craved elevation above his fellow man, power derived not from God, but from the deceiver. You wished to emulate him, didn't you? You chased his shadow. A chilling pause hung in the air. Would you like to see your idol now, Caleb? See the true price of his bargain? Before I could form a protest, before the denial boiling in my throat could erupt, the guardian gestured with one immense, gray hand. The air before me shimmered, warped like heat rising from asphalt, and then solidified into a scene, horrifyingly vivid, sickeningly real, as if I were standing right there. I saw Michael Jackson. Not the electrifying performer. Not the king of pop dazzling under stage lights, but a withered, emaciated husk of a soul. He was chained, thick, black manacles binding him to a jagged spire of volcanic rock. Fire licked at the base of the spire, casting grotesque shadows on his tormented form. And then, the music started, not from any visible source, but echoing through the hellish chamber, the iconic, driving beat of Beat It. As the familiar riff pulsed through the fiery air, a torrent of red-hot coals, glowing embers the size of fists, rained down from the unseen ceiling directly onto Michael's bound form. His screams were agonizing, piercing. Ripped from a place beyond physical pain, the sound of a soul being perpetually incinerated by the very thing it had created to gain the world. Each note, each synth stab, each drum hit seemed to trigger a fresh wave of fiery torment. His body writhed against the chains, helpless, consumed by an agony I couldn't begin to comprehend. Every note he composed to mesmerize, to subtly praise the forces of darkness, now serves as an instrument of his eternal torture. The guardian's voice cut through Michael's tortured cries, cold and factual. He chose worldly renown, sensual gratification, a status elevated above others through pacts made in shadow. He, like so many others who grasp for fame and power on your world, traded the eternal for the temporal, the divine for the diabolical. They sell their God-given essence for fleeting moments of manufactured ecstasy. I collapsed to my knees on the hot, vibrating rock, the strength draining from my limbs. Tears, hot and immediate, streamed down my face, evaporating almost instantly in the searing heat. No. I choked out, the word a broken whisper. No, it can't be, he brought so much joy. But deep within the core of my being, a sickening resonance confirmed the horror before me. The whispers, the rumors I had always dismissed as tabloid trash, the unsettling undertones I had chosen to ignore, they suddenly coalesced into a terrible, undeniable truth. Michael, the god I had worshipped at the altar of pop music, had lost his way. He had made a catastrophic choice. The guardian turned its burning gaze back to me, kneeling and broken on the floor of hell. Its voice, if possible, grew even colder, sharper, like shards of obsidian. And you, Caleb, were walking the very same precipice. You poured your life into music, yes, but for what purpose? For the roar of the crowd? For the fleeting high of performance? For the escape found in rhythm and intoxication? You neglected the vessel. It gestured vaguely towards where my physical body presumably lay. And you starved the soul. You forgot that the spirit within you is a fragment of the divine, gifted by God Almighty not for selfish pursuits, but for righteous works, for love, for service. Again. The guardian gestured, and the horrifying vision of Michael Jackson dissolved, replaced by another shimmering panorama. This time, it was my own life, unreeling before me not like a movie, but like a fully immersive re-experiencing of moments I had long buried or conveniently forgotten. I saw myself at 16, eyes wide with wonder in my father's garage. The cheap headphones clamped over my ears, listening to Thriller for the first time, feeling that electric spark ignite my destiny. But then, the scene shifted. I saw the countless nights I'd slipped out of the house, ignoring my mother's pleading eyes, chasing the illusion of freedom with bands that promised the world and delivered only hangovers and empty pockets. I saw her face, etched with worry, waiting by the phone late into the night. A vigil I had been too self-absorbed to even acknowledge. I relived gigs in smoke-filled bars, the adrenaline rush masking a deeper emptiness. I saw myself laughing too loudly, drinking too much, seeking validation from strangers whose names I wouldn't remember the next morning. I saw myself boasting about near misses with record deals, inflating my own importance, convinced I was on the verge of a breakthrough that never came. I thought I was living intensely, authentically. Now, stripped bare in this infernal place, I saw only desperation, ego, and a profound loneliness I had tried to drown out with noise. But the review wasn't just about the music. It showed me the moments of selfishness, magnified and undeniable. The time a bandmate needed help moving, and I'd pretended my back was out because I wanted to practice a difficult fill. The times my parents had gently tried to offer advice about stability, about faith, and I'd shut them down with youthful arrogance, convinced they couldn't possibly understand my artistic soul. The casual cruelties, the moments I'd prioritized my own comfort or ambition over kindness, over connection, over simple human decency. I saw a life lived largely for Caleb, fueled by a desire for recognition and sensual gratification, mirroring, in its own small way, the very path that had led my idol to this place of torment. The pursuit of artistic perfection had become a mask for profound spiritual neglect. Tears streamed down my face again, tears of shame and regret, evaporating in the heat. I looked up at the imposing guardian, the weight of my wasted years pressing down on me. "I was wrong," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion, the admission tearing itself from my soul. "So wrong. But why am I here? Why are you showing me this? Is this my fate too?" The guardian regarded me, and for the first time, I detected something other than cold judgment in those burning eyes, perhaps a flicker of something akin to pity, or maybe just cosmic weariness. "You were chosen, Caleb." The voice resonated, softer now, though no less powerful. "Not because you earned it. Not because of any inherent merit in your flawed existence. You are here because the mercy of God Almighty is vast, far beyond human comprehension. He offers second chances, even to those teetering on the brink." The guardian stepped closer, the unnatural cold radiating from it pushing back the oppressive heat momentarily. "You will return," it stated. "You will carry a message. A warning to those still lost in the intoxicating illusions of your world. Tell them, cease the embrace of music designed by darkness to mislead and corrupt. Turn away from the life of hedonistic indulgence, the endless chase for fleeting pleasures that starve the spirit. Tell them to cultivate their souls, to polish the divine spark within them, to strive for righteousness, humility, and love, that they might become worthy of the gift of life bestowed by the Creator." The guardian continued, its voice regaining its sharp edge, cutting through my dazed grief. "You mortals," it stated, the words echoing with the weight of ages, "have barely a century, often far less, upon that fleeting stage you call Earth. It is an arena of learning, a crucible designed to test the mettle of the soul. Do not mistake the temporary for the eternal. Even those who achieve saintly status in one lifetime can fall, can succumb to pride or temptation, and find themselves facing this gate, joining the countless legions who failed the test." Its gaze seemed to pierce right through me. "The soul, Caleb. That is the immortal essence. The flesh, the body you inhabit, is merely a vessel, a temporary vehicle for the soul's journey through the lessons of materiality. If you use that vessel solely for the pursuit of base desires, for ego gratification, for power over others, for the accumulation of worldly trinkets while neglecting the spirit's growth, you fail the examination. Your frequency lowers, your light dims, and you gravitate towards the darkness you embraced." The guardian paused, letting the weight of its words sink in. "Perform acts of genuine good, motivated by love and compassion, not by desire for recognition or reward. Practice humility, recognizing your place within the vastness of creation. Seek connection with the divine source. If you do this, shedding the ego's demands, you align yourself with the eternal light, with God." "But—" its voice dropped, becoming a low, ominous rumble like distant thunder. "Choose selfishness, greed, cruelty, arrogance. Choose to amplify darkness through your actions, your creations, your very thoughts, and you become fuel for the adversary. You willingly merge with the consuming shadows, strengthening the very forces that oppose the light, condemning yourself to cycles of suffering." It raised its hand again, and another vision materialized. I saw Earth, vibrant and teeming with life, but viewed through a different lens. I saw strobe lights flashing in packed nightclubs, young bodies writhing to pulsating beats, voices shouting lyrics laced with hedonism, rebellion without cause, and subtle invitations to darkness disguised as freedom. I saw concerts where performers commanded legions of adoring fans, their music weaving spells of distraction and desire. Then, the perspective shifted, juxtaposing the earthly scenes with flashes of souls back here, in this fiery realm. I saw them recoil, scream, convulse in agony whenever those specific popular songs, those anthems of earthly indulgence, echoed faintly from the world above. It was as if each beat, each seductive melody, was a lash of a whip, a fresh application of salt to their spiritual wounds. A reminder of the choices that led them here. They were tormented by the very vibrations they had once celebrated. "They don't know," I whispered, a profound ache spreading through my chest, a sorrow deeper than my own fear. "They have no idea what they're participating in, what they're amplifying." The guardian nodded grimly, its burning eyes fixed on the tormented souls. "They are blind, seduced by illusion. And that, Caleb, is why you must return. Time grows short. The illusions become more pervasive, the distractions more potent. Awaken them. Warn them. Before they too stand before this gate, their chances squandered, their souls stained." It showed me Michael Jackson again, not in torment, but a flashback to his earthly life. I saw him younger, sitting alone in a dimly lit studio, surrounded by gold records and accolades. There was a feverish intensity in his eyes as he worked on music, a desperate hunger for more fame, more adoration, more escape. But behind the ambition I saw fear. And surrounding him, almost imperceptible at first, were shadowy figures, whispering promises of unparalleled success, eternal youth, godlike status, all in exchange for subtly weaving darkness into his art, for turning his God-given talent towards the adversary's aims. I witnessed a symbolic signing, not with ink, but with something vital, something luminous draining from him, as he agreed to the infernal pact. He was far from the only one, the guardian's voice stated flatly. Countless souls, desperate for worldly power and recognition, have made similar bargains throughout your history. Singers, actors, politicians, business tycoons, artists, any who desire to rise above others through means other than righteous effort and divine blessing are susceptible. They crave shortcuts to glory, wanting the fruits without the spiritual labor. But the price, Caleb, is always exacted. Always. Either in the fires here, or through karmic repercussions across lifetimes. I shuddered, thinking of the countless songs I had played, the gigs I had performed, the music I had consumed without a second thought. Had I been unconsciously participating in this? Had my drumming, intended as an expression of passion, inadvertently contributed to the darkness? How can we know? I asked desperately, looking up at the towering figure. How can we discern which music heals and which harms? It all sounds like music. The guardian's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. You will know, Caleb, if you learn to listen not just with your ears, but with your soul. Quieten the ego's chatter, the world's noise. Music born of the light, inspired by the divine, elevates the spirit. It fosters unity, compassion, healing, and a connection to something greater than the self. It resonates with truth and love. Its voice hardened again. Music crafted or influenced by darkness appeals to the base desires. It promotes ego, division, lust, anger, despair, and spiritual numbness. It distracts from truth and pulls the soul downward, anchoring it in materiality. You have felt the difference, Caleb, though you denied it. In the hollow frenzy of those late-night gigs, playing music to forget yourself rather than to find yourself. You sense the emptiness, the subtle poison beneath the rhythm. Learn to trust that inner knowing. It is your God-given compass. The crimson light of the 66th layer began to fade, the terrifying visage of the guardian dissolving into the swirling smoke. Its final words echoed not in the air, but deep within the core of my being. Remember, Caleb. Earth is but a classroom, a fleeting illusion. The soul's journey is the only true reality. Make your remaining time count. I felt a violent wrenching sensation, like being pulled backward through an impossibly tight tunnel at terrifying speed. The crushing heat was replaced by an abrupt, shocking cold. Darkness gave way to blinding, artificial light. Sounds rushed back in, urgent voices, the rhythmic beeping of machinery, the muffled siren now fading into the distance. Got a pulse! He's back! Someone shouted, the voice sharp with adrenaline. My eyes snapped open. I was staring up at the flickering fluorescent lights inside an ambulance. An oxygen mask was strapped tightly over my face. Wires snaked across my bare chest, connected to a monitor emitting the steady beep-beep-beep that confirmed my heart was, impossibly, beating again. A paramedic leaned over me, shining a penlight into my eyes. "Welcome back, man," he said, his relief palpable. "You gave us a real scare there. Cardiac arrest. Your heart stopped for nearly 3 minutes." He shook his head. "Honestly? It's a miracle you're here. A miracle." They called it a miracle. But I knew, with a certainty that transcended medical science, that it wasn't random chance or luck. It was divine intervention. It was the mercy the guardian had spoken of. It was a second chance, bought at the edge of damnation, carrying the weight of a sacred mission. The week I spent in the sterile quiet of the hospital felt surreal. Doctors spoke of arrhythmias, blocked arteries, lifestyle changes. Nurses checked my vitals with practiced efficiency. But my mind wasn't on my physical recovery. It was replaying the scenes from the 66th layer. The burning eyes of the guardian, the tormented face of Michael Jackson, the weight of my own life lay bare. The experience hadn't faded like a dream, it remained terrifyingly, vividly real. More substantial than the hospital bed beneath me or the concerned faces of the medical staff. Lying there, listening to the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor, a sound I now associated with both life and the potential for its cessation, I began to truly question everything. The music I had dedicated my life to, the lifestyle I had embraced, the idols I had worshipped, the very purpose I had been chasing. Earth, I now understood with chilling clarity, wasn't the main event. It was a temporary stage, a proving ground for the soul. And I had been failing the test, spectacularly. I had been so focused on the performance. I'd forgotten the performer, the eternal soul within. The day I was discharged, I didn't go back to my cluttered apartment filled with music posters and old set lists. My first stop was a pawn shop. With trembling hands, I sold my drum kit, the beautiful, worn Gretsch set that had been my voice, my confidant, my entire world for nearly 2 decades. Letting it go felt like severing a limb, but also like shedding a heavy skin. It was a necessary sacrifice, a symbolic break from the path that had led me to the brink. I didn't abandon music entirely. I couldn't. It was woven into the fabric of my being. But the why and the how changed profoundly. The frantic, ego-driven energy was gone, replaced by a quiet, searching reverence. I picked up an old acoustic guitar I hadn't touched in years. Slowly, tentatively, I began to compose again, but the melodies that emerged were different. They weren't born from a desire to impress or escape, but from a place of quiet contemplation, of newfound awe, of gratitude for the light I had been shown. One song, simple and raw, came almost fully formed. I called it Light Within. It spoke of finding hope in darkness, of the divine spark residing in every soul, of the journey back to grace. Months later, nervously, I shared it with the music director at a small, interfaith community church near my new, much simpler apartment. To my astonishment, they decided to use it during their Sunday service. Sitting in the back pew, hearing the congregation sing those words, seeing tears glisten in some eyes, feeling a palpable sense of peace settle over the room, that was a validation far deeper, far more real than any applause I'd ever received in a smoky bar. I finally understood. Music could be a bridge to the divine, but only when offered with a pure heart, free from ego and the shadows of darker intentions. My near-death experience cracked open a thirst for understanding I never knew I possessed. Selling the drums wasn't an end, but a beginning. I started reading, voraciously. I devoured the Bible, finding profound wisdom and warnings in its ancient verses. I explored the Quran, recognizing parallel truths about divine mercy, accountability, and the importance of righteous living. I sought out the teachings of spiritual masters from various traditions, Rumi, Yogananda, Thich Nhat Hanh, finding echoes of the Guardian's message in their words about illusion, detachment, and the soul's eternal nature. I began attending services, not just at the church that used my song, but visiting mosques, synagogues, meditation centers. I wasn't looking to trade one dogma for another, but seeking the underlying current, the universal truth that flowed beneath the surface of all genuine faiths, the reality of a loving, conscious Creator, the inherent divinity within each soul, and the moral imperative to live in alignment with that truth. I realized the Guardian's message wasn't about condemning one religion or praising another, but about the fundamental choice between light and darkness, between serving God and serving the self, a choice presented in different forms by all paths leading towards the light. My external life began to transform, slowly but surely. I called my mother. Not a quick, obligatory check-in, but a real conversation. I listened, truly listened, as she spoke about her garden, her worries, her memories of my childhood. And for the first time, without awkwardness or hesitation, I told her, "I love you, Mom." The relief in her voice was a balm to my own soul. I reconnected with Mark, one of the guitarists from my old band circuit, a man I knew was struggling with addiction. Before my experience, I might have offered empty platitudes or avoided him altogether. Now I sought him out. I didn't preach, I just listened. I sat with him through long nights as he poured out his pain, his regrets, the darkness that threatened to consume him. I shared my own story, not as a lecture, but as a fellow traveler who had glimpsed the abyss. I saw a flicker of hope ignite in his eyes. The realization that he wasn't alone, that redemption was possible. Helping him felt more meaningful than any standing ovation I'd ever received. Sharing my NDE story was perhaps the most challenging part. Initially, I kept it locked inside, terrified of ridicule, of being dismissed as crazy or delusional after a medical trauma. But the urgency of the Guardian's message burned within me. How could I remain silent, knowing what I knew? I started small, sharing fragments with trusted friends. Then more openly during prayer meetings at the community church. Later, summoning all my courage, I agreed to an interview on a local Memphis podcast focused on spiritual experiences. The reactions were mixed, as I expected. Some scoffed, leaving dismissive comments online. Some offered pitying smiles, clearly thinking I'd suffered a brain injury. But others listened. Truly listened. I saw recognition flash in their eyes, a resonance with something deep within their own souls. A young woman, a singer in a popular local goth rock band known for its dark and provocative lyrics, approached me after one talk, tears streaming down her face. "Caleb," she whispered, "I heard you. I felt it. I've been feeling uneasy about the energy we're putting out there. After hearing you, I can't do it anymore. I don't want my soul, or anyone else's, burning because of songs I sang." She quit the band the next day. We hugged, two strangers bound by a shared glimpse of a reality beyond the veil. In that moment I knew, beyond any doubt, that I was fulfilling the mission I had been sent back to accomplish. The ridicule faded into insignificance beside the weight of that one awakened soul. So now, I lived to share the light I was shown. I was Caleb, the drummer who chased fame, who worshipped an idol lost to shadow, who mistook the roar of the crowd for the voice of truth. I was the man who believed life was measured in decibels, applause, and the bottom of a whiskey bottle. But I have seen beyond the veil. I have felt the fires of consequence, not through scripture or sermons alone, but etched onto my soul in the terrifying reality of the 66th layer. I have witnessed the agony of a soul, even one as globally adored as Michael Jackson's, tormented by the very creations born from a bargain with darkness. I have heard the solemn warning of the Guardian, and I have been granted the immeasurable grace of a second chance by a merciful God. If you are reading these words, if my story has reached you across the digital expanse or the printed page, I implore you, with every fiber of my being, stop. Just for this moment, stop. Look at the life you are living. Examine the choices you make every single day. What are you doing with the precious, finite gifts God has bestowed upon you, your body, your talents, your time, your very consciousness? What music do you listen to? What messages do you allow to permeate your mind and spirit? Do they uplift you, inspire compassion, connect you to the divine? Or do they subtly deaden your soul, appeal to your basest instincts, glorify ego, division, and fleeting sensation? What images do you consume? What entertainment distracts you from the essential questions of your existence? Do not let the intoxicating allure of worldly pleasure blind you to the state of your eternal soul. Do not let the siren song of fame, recognition, or material wealth lure you onto paths that lead away from the light. Do not trade the diamond of your spirit for shards of broken glass. Time is shorter than you think. As the Guardian warned, this earth is a classroom, a stage, a test. Your soul is the student, the actor, the one being tested. You likely have far less than 100 years to learn the crucial lessons of love, humility, service, and discernment before your final examination. Use this time wisely. Polish the mirror of your soul so it reflects the divine light. Strive to live for love, for compassion, for truth, for God. Use whatever talents you possess, whether great or small, not for selfish gain, but to heal, to unite, to uplift others, to bring more light into a world increasingly shadowed by darkness. Because when your time comes, when you stand before your own gate, perhaps not the 66th layer, but your own point of transition, it will not be your fame, your wealth, your awards, or your worldly pleasures that are weighed in the balance. It will be the state of your soul, the choices you made, the love you shared, the light you allowed to shine through you. I am Caleb. I was pulled from the brink of eternal fire. This is my testimony, given in truth and urgency. I have seen the horrifying reality of hell. But I have also felt the boundless potential of God's redeeming light. I was chosen to return, to sound this alarm. Please, I beg you, awaken. Awaken now, today. Before the final curtain falls on your earthly act. Your soul is immortal. Its destiny rests in your hands. Will you guide it towards the eternal embrace of God, or towards the consuming shadows? The choice, now and always, is yours. If Caleb's incredible journey from the edge of damnation to spiritual awakening resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss more true stories meant to awaken souls and illuminate the path towards divine light. Your engagement helps spread these vital messages.